Order for Monday, September 17th, 6 p.m., and I'd like to ask for the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by myself. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have a roll call, please?
Vice Mayor Harrington.
Here.
Councilmember Edwards.
Yes.
Councilmember Cook.
Here.
Councilmember Henley.
Here.
Mayor Agramonte.
Here.
Thank you.
And I have nothing to report out because we did not have a closed session. May I ask if anyone has any changes to the agenda or if any comments, and ask for a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Harrington.
Aye.
Councilmember Edwards.
Yes.
Councilmember Cook.
Aye.
Councilmember Henley.
Aye.
Mayor Agramonte.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Comments from the public. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda. It is recommended that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Under state law, unless otherwise permitted under the Ralph M. Brown Act, the merits of the matters presented under this item cannot be discussed or acted upon by the City Council at this time. For items appearing on the agenda, the public will be invited to make comments at that time. Items come up to the council for council consideration. Upon being acknowledged by the mayor, please step to the podium and speak into the microphone. Begin by stating and spelling your name. Do I have any comments from the public? Oh, gosh. Now what do I do? Well, I'm going to close that public session and bring it back. Meeting dedications, I do not have any. Does anyone else have meeting dedications? Having none, I am now at the consent agenda. Number 4, all items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the members of the council, staff, or public request specific items to be removed for separate action at this time. Council may change the order of the agenda. Any comments, or do you want to change the order of the agenda? No one. I see no one, so I'm going to ask for public comments.
I would like to discuss agenda item 4.6, please.
I'm sorry, you wanted to pull it? All right, thank you. Could I have a motion, please, on the others?
Make a motion to approve items 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, and 4.5.
Second.
Thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Vice Mayor Harrington.
Aye.
Councilmember Edwards.
Yes.
Councilmember Cook.
Aye.
Councilmember Henley.
Aye.
Mayor Agramonte.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries
We,
unanimously.
our city manager, we've been asked to pull 4.6.
Thank you, Mayor Agramonte and Council. So this is an annual distribution of the growth management allocations. This report, I actually asked our prior planning director, Mr. Goodison, to put together since he had the institutional knowledge before he left of tracking these items. So the way the process works, I think the easiest way to look at it is on the actual attachment, the resolution. So there is a base allocation of 65 units each year, and then if there's any carryover that have not been used, they get added on. In addition, if there's any unfilled allocations, and there were a number of unfilled allocations from a number of projects, so those get added back and to be used again. So there's currently 122 allocations to be distributed for 18-19, and there is always 6 units set aside for small development, and then another 30 for infill, and then there's a net available of 86, and those are allocated on a kind of a first come first serve tracking. So there are 4 projects that are listed here that will get 20 units each, and an additional 6 for a remainder, and that then uses the allocation for this year. So I'd be happy to answer any questions of the council.
Are there
Or
any,
public.
do we have any questions from the city council?
I do, which it's more. Seems like this would be something interesting to look at one day. But the 86 is that 65 plus what was left over from the last year that's carried over until the next year.
I'm sorry, say again?
So the number is 86, and it's you start with a base of 65. So that means we rolled over 21 from this year, and we're rolling over to next year.
Yeah, see, there's basically 65, and then there were 11 that were unused in last year, another 14 that were unused for the hospital, 5 unused for Gateway, and 27 that were unused on the Peterson property. So then those get reallocated in to get you to the 122.
And do you happen to know projects that get allocated but then just don't get built, how long they stay allocated, or do we ever get them back?
It's actually a question I'd like to look at. I think as long as they are allocated, I did go through the ordinance and I didn't see a timeline because they're basically, so my understanding is they kind of sit vested, and I do not have an allocation of how many folks are sitting there with allocations that have been approved but never used. So that would take some research for us to do.
Well, that's an interesting question because sometimes I think what I feel they almost turn into a blight for a neighborhood if something isn't done, and especially if they don't take care of the property. Is that something the city regularly will look at, or it just you assume it's gonna, once it hits the city, then we take action?
Well, there's a certain amount of time when folks have entitlements, and maybe the city attorney can speak to this as well. And then once they get, there definitely are projects that have put in for building permits. They put in, maybe they not quite ready to go, things take longer, so we extend. So there definitely are projects that have been kind of in the building permit process for 2 years. So that process sometimes for a variety, whether it's economic reasons or getting the right contractors, that can stop and start on a developer.
So I do know this. Your process currently, for most projects of any size, doesn't allow a developer to accumulate sufficient allocations in a given year to actually construct the project, as you all know. They will sit for a number of years to collect allocations before they reach the total number of allocations they need to build, and they don't tend to, as is obvious, build projects in phases. They want to get in and then get out, meaning they want all of their allocations in place. I'm going to say a word lawyers should never say, but I'm going to say it anyway because I don't actually know. I would assume that the planning department has a tracking system to know how many allocations are sitting out, allocated but not yet constructed. So we would need to take a look at what those allocations are, what projects they are assigned to, and whether that project's even still valuable. If there is no process in your current ordinance for, how do I put this, removing assigned allocations or taking them away so that they could be reassigned to another project, then we should bring that forward for the council to look at a process of how reallocations occur and how long allocations can sit once a project is fully allocated, because obviously there's some time period from there forward to building permit. So I don't know the answer to how many are sitting out there, but I'm going to assume, that the planning department has a list of those projects, and we can look into that and bring it back to the council for some consideration of how that sits right now.
It's kind of interesting with respect to data. You would imagine, I go back 100 years when we used to look at error messages. So you would imagine if there's a date connected to allocation, it would pop up and say done or limited or ready for re-review or.
Well, based on what David provided in this particular staff report, as well as the resolutions, that there are unused allocations from previous years. One assumes that, I'll give an example, unused allocations from the Gateway Project 5. It must be when they applied for allocations and started collecting them in the process, that they collected more than the project currently entails as proposed before you, and that they're releasing or giving 5 back. So it tells me he has some sort of tracking process. I've just never actually looked at it. So I didn't want to represent what it might be when I haven't looked at it.
So it sounds as if the council is interested in understanding that? Yeah, I mean, I certainly am, so I guess that's our city manager's attention. Could I ask, do I bring this out to the public? I mean, we answered, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I'm taking it out to the public. Just wanted to check. Thank you.
Hi, Fred Allabach at 19550 8th Street East, as I was before. I was interested in this item and how it relates to the UGB and the Regional Housing Needs Assessment and the unfolding general plan process of the coming housing element. And so I'm wanting to connect the dots between the RENA numbers and the UGB. And for example, it's my understanding that with the RENA numbers, that the city just needs to show that it's able to build a certain number of units at an affordable level, but they don't have to do it. But over time, the city has built a preponderance of market rate units, but not built the affordable units. And so then the growth management ordinance comes in and people are shooting for the market rate parts of the housing. And so it just seems to me that people don't want to build affordable housing, and the way that the system is set up, it makes it so you don't have to. And so that's just my feeling about it, but I don't know. And so as part of the general plan discussion on housing, I'd be interested in having all these different parts show how they're related, and so we can see if the city is really doing as much as it can for affordable housing, and then what affordable housing is, which is pegged to the area median income, because for two people who area median income is $68,000, so that's middle class. And so some things in the city housing element say that these projects are for middle class, but they're selling for $700,000. So that's not middle class anymore. So I think in the general plan, if the city is interested in supporting middle class, then let's have some middle class housing for people who can afford it at $68,000 for a family of two. But anyhow, I'm on the Sonoma Valley Housing Group, and I'm interested in advocating for affordable housing, and so I would like to understand the growth management ordinance and how that fits with these other pieces, and that's why I was interested in talking about it. And so thanks very much for having a little bit of a discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Hollaback. Gary?
I just want to add one thing in, because it seems like everything takes such a long time to build here. I was cleaning out some pallets of paperwork when I was on SVCAC, and I think we started the Valetti discussion on the affordable housing there in the year 2000, and it's just almost finished. So when you look at the affordable that's been done here and all the inclusionary stuff that's gone on, and even the places where we've built things that, as you brought up, Amy, where it doesn't always look just like the other guys, which I'm still a big fan of, but it does take such a long time to get anything done here, even in the county. And then the Broadway housing that we've approved, I think, is great. I haven't seen any shovels in the ground yet, but I'd like to see more. And I'd like to see some more rentals coming our way as we can. I talked way back about the hospital. I think that's 14 units, but that could have been great 3-story housing there, which would have been awesome, with seniors on the bottom, workforce on top, and families in the middle. So, but it looks like those 14 units are just going to be 14 houses, which is unfortunate.
Anyone else? No? At this point, would somebody make a motion to approve then that 4.6? To accept 4.6? Isn't that's the one?
Just by title.
Make a motion to adopt a resolution of the City of Sonoma distributing growth management allocations for the 2018-2019 development year.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Harrington.
Aye.
Councilmember Edwards.
Yes.
Councilmember Cook.
Aye.
Councilmember Henley.
Aye.
Mayor Agramonte.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, and I'm turning this over to the city clerk, 5.1.
This is item 5.1, and this item is going to be continued to a date determined at this meeting. It's the review, discussion, and possible action where the council will decide to either uphold or deny an appeal of the Planning Commission's approval and possibly approve a mitigated negative declaration, a tentative map and use permit for the Gateway Mixed-Use Development at 870 Broadway.
And our city manager?
Thank you, Mayor Agramonte and council. And we have looked at kind of, so first I'll say that from the last time council heard this was on August 6th when we kicked off the appeal hearing, and there were questions and issues and research that you asked. And so both city staff's been working on that. The developer has been working on to respond to those items. One of the requests was story polls, and those story polls have been placed. So we are moving forward, and the next step is to kind of set the second appeal hearing. Right now, staff is shooting hard for October 1st, and so that's the date we would like to do. That October 1st, that meeting would start at 6 o'clock. There may be. So that is the meeting that we would like to. This is a regular meeting. I've tried to move some things off the docket for that night so that it would be wouldn't be a special meeting on the appeal, but it would be a predominantly focused on that. So I would ask that you can open and continue the public hearing to October 1st.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the city council? None? At this point, I'd like to go out for public comments. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council, and there were no questions asked, and no further discussion. So at this point, this item's continued to September 24th. Is there anything?
Sorry, Madam
Okay,
Mayor, it
and a
needs a
motion.
motion and a vote to continue to a date certain.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to move this to our regular scheduled October 1st meeting.
Second.
Roll call, oh, I'm sorry. Roll call, please.
I hate to be hyper-specific, but I'm going to. If I could suggest a slight amendment to the motion to continue the public hearing currently scheduled to that date.
Continuing the public hearing is.
Thank you.
Roll
Vice
call,
Mayor
please.
Vice Mayor Harrington?
Aye.
Councilmember Edwards?
Yes.
Councilmember Cook?
Aye.
Councilmember Henley?
Aye.
Mayor Agramonte?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay. So we're on 5.2?
So 5.2. That's right. So the next item, this is a discussion, consideration, possible adoption of an extension of an inter-emergency ordinance related to a moratorium, imposing a moratorium on wine tasting facilities in the plaza. So this was original agendized, and Mr. Edwards is going to step off.
Yeah, I'm going to step off, and I'm actually going to leave because it's my birthday. So.
Oh, happy birthday!
We're like a choir.
So this item was originally scheduled for this evening, but their staff was not ready to kind of bring it forward. So and the public hearing was noticed for this date. So we are asking the council to continue the public hearing to September 24th, where we will ask you to extend the urgency ordinance, and we will have a conversation about timing and next steps at that meeting.
So what is the pleasure? I think I'd like to go out in public. I'd like to bring it out to the public. No one? Bring it back to the city council. What is the pleasure? Oopsie. What is the pleasure of the council? 5.2, this item continued to December 21st. Do we need a vote?
You do, thank you.
Could I have a roll call then?
We need
A motion? There's no one left.
Closed it. Rachel? I'm opening it, I closed it.
Is there a staff report? Could you remind me the date that we're
extending it to September 24th.
Oh, that date.
And-
I'd like to make a motion to continue the discussion, consideration, and possible adoption of the interim urgency relating to tasting rooms until September 24th, 2018 at 6.
Thank you.
PM.
And we actually need to go back and do the other one to a time certain. I didn't see that. So, yes, that was the request.
Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Harrington? Aye. Councilmember Edwards is absent. Councilmember Cook? Aye. Councilmember Hunley?
Aye.
Mayor Agramonte?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 4-0-1.
So council, as we just indicated, I apologize, but I didn't notice that there was no backup that said the time to the other item that was continued to a date certain. So I'd ask
I'll
that
add
you
to my motion 6
reconsider
o'clock.
that item. Thank you very much, and you'll need to revote take a second and revote that item as well.
Wait, do we have to make a motion to reconsider a vote and then reconsider?
But you know, I actually said regular scheduled meeting. So I mean, that is 6 o'clock.
You did say that. That's true. Okay. We've now made clear at 6 o'clock.
So at this point, let's see, are there any reports from council members or comments? Seeing nothing there. City manager?
None tonight, thank you.
Oh, my God. Could Jason, would you please report this the very earliest I have ever adjourned a meeting?
I think this is my birthday.
Not Gary's birthday, it's just feeling right.
Well, we are adjourned. I can't believe it. Don't forget about those hours. 4 9.